explain to me a little bit how the Visa and MasterCard network works and some of the inherent flaws in it that Bitcoin maybe solves?
Sure. So Visa and MasterCard and payment systems like that are not settlement networks. You're not doing final settlement. They're a layer on top of a layer on top of a layer.
Another ledger.
Yeah, it's another ledger. It's basically a way for banks to agree. And so Visa and MasterCard themselves don't carry debt. They're just operating the mechanism for banks to come to this consensus. And so when we look at, say, the U.S. banking system.
Oh, hold on a second. So that's kind of interesting. So they don't actually control any money. All they're doing is telling each bank what they have to settle with each other at the end of the day?
They're basically an IT companies, yeah.
Huh.
Whereas American Express and Discover, they are both those systems, but then they also are their own bank. So they hold debt as well. Whereas Visa and MasterCard are networks.
So basically a communication network for communicating what people owe each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh, I never knew that.
I never thought of it like that.
And and how does that tend to work? Is it immediate settlement they're telling people, or is there end of day settlement that, do they, I don't know, if you've got two banks that say, well, you owe this one and you owe this one this, and they just settle? How does that actually work?
It's changed a little bit over time as settlements gotten a little bit faster. So that part is malleable, but it's not instant settlement. And basically, so there's when a bank issues a card,
yeah,
they're the ones taking on the risk, really. And so you have that bank. You also have the merchant's bank.
Yeah.
Right. So you have both the cardholder's bank, the merchant's bank. You have the network in the middle. You have a bunch of intermediaries along the way, and everyone has to get their fee. Right. So one, it's not a super low fee system. It's efficient. It's workable. A lot of times we happily use it instead of cash, but it's not a free system. There's pretty high fees. And then number two, they rely on settlement networks like Fedwire for the actual gross final settlement. So, any given day, there's like countless millions of transactions, and they're not actually sending money back and forth each time. They're kind of reconciling at the end of the day or every other day. It changes over time, but they're batching multiple transactions together into final settlements that happen over settlement networks like Fedwire.
And so what did Fedwire do itself?
So Fedwire is operated by the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
And that is a gross interbank settlement system. So basically what that does is it handles a relatively small number of very large transactions, and that's final settlement.
Final settlements between the banks, like leveling up what bank should have what at the end of each day.
And there are other systems, but that one's huge. And so roughly speaking, every year, you might have 200 million payments, which is not a lot for a whole economy the size of the United States, but it settles hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of value because it's gross value, and it's each transaction is millions.
And what happens with the international transactions? How does that work? Is that a similar thing?
They use Swift system for communication, and then different heirs will have different settlement networks.
Right, yes. Like equivalent to Fedwire.
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the middlemen who are taking a little bit of a cut, how many different people are taking a cut of this?
Well, you're having the networks take a cut. So Visa and MasterCard take their cut.
Yeah.
And then you also have the merchant bank. So if I have a credit card and I'm buying something from you, your bank is taking a cut for accepting that card. And then my bank is taking a cut. And then the network is taking a cut. So there's multiple people. There's at least three parties along the way that are taking a cut.
And as a percent of a transaction, do we know what that kind of comes to? Is it like 3%? 2%?
It's like somewhere around 3%. It'll vary a little bit based on the network. But yeah, it's around 3%.
So, yeah, I mean, so if you're spending hundreds of thousands of years £100,000 as a business each year, you're paying thousands in fees.
Yes, I mean, the way it's normally constructed is that the merchant really is paying the fees.
Okay.
So the user is not really paying the fees, and if anything, they're often getting rewards that entice people to use them, which entices merchants to accept them. But that's often why you'll see merchants have a lower price if you pay in cash, because they're basically, if they accept cards, which they pretty much have to do if they really want to get most business, they're paying a pretty fat fee on that. And so that's really where the fee comes from. But of course, if the merchant's paying the fee, it really means that the price of their product has to be high enough to take into account that fee. So the consumer is still paying it by paying slightly higher prices at the merchant.
Yeah, well, I noticed with British Airways, they charge a different fee depending on the card issuer as well. I think Amex, you pay a higher fee.
Yes.
And also if it's a corporate debit card, you pay a higher fee.
Yes.
I've seen that as well. Huh. So what are the biggest flaws you see in the system outside of, I mean, firstly, it's expensive because of the fees. Are there any significant flaws?
Well, two main flaws. One is that it is just a layer on top of a fiat currency system.
Yep.
So it's inflationary. And number two, it's permissioned.
Sorry, how is it inflationary?
Well, because it's all based on moving dollars or euros or yen around. This is not, it's not its own unit of account. It's
right. Okay,
it's a layer on top of
an inflationary system.
Of an inflationary system.
I thought you meant the actual system itself is inflationary.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's just moving around inflationary units.
Yes.
So that's number one. And then number two is it's permissioned. It's a walled garden, basically, that you have to have access to. You have to be given access to it by financial institutions.
And you can be removed from it.
You can be removed from it either, even from a top-down way. If you're in an authoritarian government, they can be like, people that meet this criteria are not allowed to access banks.
Or you can be censored?
Yes.
To watch the full video, check out the link in the description below. What do you think of Lyn's thoughts here? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found value in the content, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.